everybody. I wanted to do a brief little tutorial on Cptsd, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'll probably do a bigger, more expanded one later, but I just kind of wanted to touch on this because it's such an important issue. I wanted to make sure that I got it in there, at least something about it, because it's no, it's not something that's in the DSM. The DSM, I don't know if you all know what that is. That's the manual that has all the diagnoses, the mental health diagnoses that they use to diagnose a personality disorder, for instance, or any of these, any clinical depression and so on. Post-traumatic stress disorder is in the DSM, but they basically have to kind of vote on what gets to put in and what is not put in. And they decided that complex post-traumatic stress disorder was not enough, didn't warrant getting put in as its own disorder. I should say I disagree with that. I think that it's enough different that it probably should have been in the DSM. In fact, I say that these two things are more different. Post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder are more different and distinct than some of the personality disorders are. Post-traumatic stress disorder can be caused by something that happens, just one time. Some traumatic event that happens just one time, and it becomes a trigger for you. But the difference with between that and complex post-traumatic stress disorder is that complex post-traumatic stress disorder was from an ongoing, prolonged stressor, a prolonged trauma. Now, in the DSM, they're mostly focused on veterans. And it was the veterans who actually lobbied to get complex post-traumatic stress disorder put in the DSM. And instead what they did was they put in mild, moderate, and severe PTSD, but they didn't put in the Cptsd. But that doesn't mean that we can't better understand it. We certainly can. What complex PTSD is it's basically what happens when there's repeated trauma, what repeated trauma can do to a person. And so when a person is repeatedly traumatized by a war or abused over a long period of time, it can make relationships afterwards very difficult. They state that those who suffer from complex post-traumatic stress disorder have more issues than the people with PTSD. They have more issues with emotion regulation, forgetting the traumatic events, self-perception, feeling ashamed and guilty for struggling with this and not feeling okay like everyone else, distorted perceptions of their perpetrators, relations with others. They have problems with their relationships with others. They may isolate or struggle to trust people, and they struggle with their own sense of meaning. They may feel hopeless and struggle to have any kind of faith or hope in the future. Can tend to be very pessimistic. It can come off looking like pessimism. It can come off looking like depression. The treatment of Cptsd is pretty much the same as it is for PTSD. However, there is an intense focus on interpersonal difficulties. They focus on this because those with repeated trauma have more trouble trusting and not lashing out, feeling safe, and managing their feelings of shame and guilt. By focusing on these things, we can hopefully help those with complex PTSD better understand their situation and manage their relationships. There's an excellent book. This is an excellent book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. And I'm going to do a more extensive review of this book and a more extensive, in-depth look at Cptsd also. But I just wanted to kind of mention that because I was being asked about it, and I still wanted to make sure that I at least touched on it a little bit. I've got all kinds of notes in this book. I've got pages are all dog-eared and underlined, and so I've got all kinds of stuff to talk about. So this has been a really big factor in my life. It's been a big factor in my life and in the lives of my children. So this is a very important subject to me, and I think it is to a lot of us by the sounds of it. So we will devote more time to it, but I wanted to just make sure that we had that few minutes at least that I mentioned it, and and you knew that I had it on the radar screen. Okay, thanks a lot for stopping by. Please write comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video podcast, and I will talk with you all soon. Please subscribe also if you haven't yet done that. Alrighty, bye-bye.